time has come to finally talk about the last half of Twin Peaks. It has been a while since the third season concluded, and it has taken time for me to come to fruition with what I will exactly say on this review for the last 10 episodes. I want to start by saying if you haven't watched my review on the first half of Twin Peaks Season 3, take a look at the card above or in the description for the link. You don't necessarily need to watch it, but I'll hate you forever if you don't. On a happier note, I am happy to finally release this massive monster of a video. So just like the first half, I'll talk about my impressions on the technical details, how I feel each episode fits, and finally score it at the end of each segment, along with some theories I placed throughout the review. An interesting aspect to note about this season is how it separates from our average television series. To explain this season is much like explaining an 18-hour movie, since the overall idea of Twin Peaks: The Return is to look at that universe at a different angle, which is one of the reasons Season 3 is much different than its prior installment. That is why the atmosphere has evolved into a darker and subtler theme. The format has formed in an unordinary way. In the end, you either accept its difference or you don't. I am the Old Tin Man. If you're new to these analysis videos, click the subscribe button below to keep an eye out for Twin Peaks analysis videos. If you want to be notified when my newest video is released, click the bell notification button. We start this review with Part 9, the follow-up episode of the most bizarre yet one of the most alluring pieces of Season 3. At this point, the story breaks into a different route. Everything is starting to connect and slowly coming together. The major plots now involve all the characters to go to a route towards Twin Peaks. Mr. C, revived after being shot by Ray, is on the path to find the coordinates hidden from him. Gordon Cole is informed about Briggs' body, leading him to uncover his secrets, which is also the same goal for the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department. And Dale Cooper, who has shown his signs of life as Dougie Jones, due to his defense from Ike the Spike, has grown his association with Bushnell Mullins, allowing him to stay on a direct path. Since Bushnell's younger days as a champion boxer, he might have appreciated Cooper's defensive actions, along with his beneficial actions that helped Bushnell with insurance fraud. Cooper now has a valuable power behind him. This particular episode warms up the audience to what is coming, almost foreshadowing the conclusion. At the Las Vegas police station, Cooper studies an electrical outlet after acknowledging the American flag, which could resemble Dale's federal position, and a woman's red shoes, which at first made me believe it was referencing Audrey's red shoes in the first episode of the first season. But after doing some research, red shoes resembles power and identity. Dating back to the 1600s when King Louis XIV wore red heels to display his aristocracy. Louis declared that only those dignified by the royal court were allowed the benefit of having the crimson color on their shoes. Over time, it became more of a way to identify the role of a protagonist or antagonist in many fictional stories, such as The Wizard of Oz. Much like the red shoes that carried Dorothy home, perhaps the red shoes is not only representing Cooper's lost identity as an FBI agent, but directing Cooper's vision to his path back to reality, the electric socket, the way in which he returns back to his normal self. I rate Part 9 a 4 out of 5. After continuing from a mysterious and brilliant episode that jumps back into the Twin Peaks timeline, Part 9 slowly brings us back to reality and gives us a slight nudge that allows us to continue to an unknown direction. This episode to me is the stepping stone of the second half of the season, and since Part 8 was such a high point in the season, we're expected to see a slowdown right after, which necessarily isn't a bad thing. Instead of containing impressive discoveries, Part 9 calms down the development in a delicate way that keeps the audience engaged. Since we don't understand a great portion of Mr. C's goal or how Dale will leave Dougie's host, we can only wonder what to expect and try to unravel what it all means. Part 10 takes an interesting perspective on some minor characters. Besides the smaller portions with Dougie and the casual checkup from Jerry in his newly found habitat, we are presented with characters like Carl Rudd, Happy Chad, the Mitchum brothers, and more importantly, Richard. Up to this point, we have been so focused on Dale's recovery and Mr. C's enigmatic passage that instead of following a lead role, the episode gives us a better understanding of the environment around them. We especially uncover more of the newly introduced Richard and his position in Twin Peaks. Besides the episode revolving around this grotesque bastard of a man, I also want to note that a majority of the episode consists of physical abuse. Although I don't know if this display was intentional, but it's interesting if we consider the focal point to represent Twin Peaks' current crippling condition, since we haven't had a considerable amount of time in the town so far to recognize its position. 25 years can alter the lifestyle of a small town, and we have already seen so many newer concerns rise from the residents there. Whether it does affect the people around them or these problematic individuals are slowly becoming a hazard to the town. We have learned in Part 7 that an illegal prostitution racket is established in Twin Peaks, a rather similar arrangement of the brothel and One-Eyed Jacks, if not the same organization, which ultimately led to Laura's downfall. There are also people in the town like Sarah Palmer who are mentally unstable and further prove the town's diminishing circumstances. And let's be real, the town would be better off without someone like Chad. I rate Part 10 a 5 out of 5. This episode is one of the few that explores Twin Peaks' community, especially through the eyes of its lesser-known characters. The development of smaller roles is what makes a show relatable and vigorous. Part 10 disconnects from what is really important at the time and instead asks the viewer why they should care about the residents of Twin Peaks. It's as if Lynch and Frost wanted to prove what is right from wrong in the episode. Although Dale's progress is still a mystery, we can't always expect a predictable straight line in the plot, and we're able to see the balance in this episode. Part 11 is yet another episode that revolves around a theme, this time consciousness. Episodes like this one, with a deep meaning, always seems to grab my attention and repeatedly prove to be a power to the story. Realization spreads in the characters that something dreadful is happening. The episode is almost uncovering to the characters their fate and how they must approach it. I think this is a great follow-up episode of the embodiment of the broken Twin Peaks universe, which was Part 10. It's as if this episode is showing some of the characters what the audience experienced in the previous episode. Becky is becoming aware of Steven's intentions. He has become more disconnected, making Becky find that her life is becoming a miserable mess. Her parents, Bobby and Shelley, even tell her that she must leave Steven. Moments later in the Double R diner, after a bullet accidentally fires, Bobby examines the madly obnoxious driver with her demon-possessed daughter? I don't know. This particular scene is remarkably well done. At first glance, you might wonder why is this girl from The Exorcist cast in Twin Peaks, but we are looking at the scene through Bobby's perspective. So imagine looking through the eyes of someone who sees their life tearing apart. Bobby is finding out, if not for the first time, that his daughter has been dealt a bad hand, and his ex, Shelley, has moved on and given up moving their relationship forward. The display of this abnormal demon girl is an exaggeration of Bobby's imagination representing his emotional direction. So in reality, this girl doesn't have Satan on her side. Bobby is realizing things are changing in a negative way, that he doesn't think he will be able to patch up, as we see him blankly staring at the sickly girl. In Las Vegas, the Mitchum brothers make arrangements to meet and deal with Dougie Jones, which is one of the best segments of this episode. Not only are the brothers some of my favorite in the season, and their portrayal fits the odd ambience that is Twin Peaks, but we see them in a sudden turn from fury to containment in a matter of minutes. The quirky performance of misinterpretation with Dougie and the brothers is a great example of how Twin Peaks incorporates a tense scene in the best way. The last I want to talk about in this episode is the moment when Dale brings his attention to the piano player's newly started arrangement. This is the last bit of realization in this episode and has to be one of my favorite moments in this season. The music is strikingly moving and Kyle MacLachlan's expression shows so much emotion, yet so little reason. The pianist hits a nerve in Dale's body that allows him to come to the realization of something important, but to the audience it's unseen. The unclear nature of this alert Dougie Jones is what makes this moment dramatic. Whatever he is coming to realize, it's an important key that will help him on his journey. I rate Part 11 a 5 out of 5. The symbolistic theme of consciousness seems to set the uneasy tone that will play a part in the final episodes. It is episodes like Part 11 that makes an excellent addition to the season. Part 12 is unfortunately when things start to slow down. For me, there is a huge decline of exploration for the audience. We were shown a lighter portion of the details that to a degree maintain a neutral pace. Although, to find the good out of bad, there are a few major parts in this episode I would say are key points to the story and to my enjoyment. Gordon and Albert inducted Tamara Preston into the Blue Rose Task Force, which carries on to the Secret History of Twin Peaks book series. Just go read that series to understand what I mean. As for the last thing that kept my animosity from escaping the gates of hell for this episode, is the awkward engagement between Albert, Gordon, and his French date. The scene is a great example of Lynch comedy, hilariously odd and lengthened out. I rate Part 12 a 2 out of 5. With all respect, This happens to be my least favorite episode of the season. The episode felt shorter than other episodes, making it feel as if the story was in a sort of suspension. One of the parts I was looking forward to this season was Audrey's introduction, and Part 12's presentation of her felt strained. Without any grand entrance or at least a slow camera pan that reveals her in the shot, the first scene cuts to her talking to mysterious husband, Charlie. Now, after almost 12 hours, we have been waiting for Audrey to appear in some way, but it's understandable to take some time to reintroduce her into the series, especially with her cliffhanger conclusion in Season 2. Still, we have been given so much information to piece together since Part 1 that when Audrey's plot is brought into the mix, I got confused with all the additional characters introduced in a span of minutes. Not only is Audrey stressed out about her new boyfriend Billy's whereabouts, she makes Charlie call Tina to find out where Billy is. But immediately after at the Roadhouse, Abby and Natalie talk about their friend Angela's obsession with Clark, who apparently is with Mary. OMG Mary, how could you? Unfortunately, Trick didn't get hit by a car.
I almost got killed coming over here.
So we had to see him come into the scene as well. Now, I have come to the conclusion that these extra characters are a part of Audrey's plotline, so I'm contemplating their existence now that the season is over. Either way, I will have a migraine if I tried to uncover Abby, Natalie, Angela, Clark, Mary, and Trick's meaning any further. I do want to note that even though I didn't fully enjoy this episode, I'll note that any successful story are bound to have a few hiccups every so often. Patience is key. For the case of Twin Peaks The Return, an 18-hour movie is a lot of time to fill, and you can possibly say missteps comes with experimenting. Part 13 is an episode that heavily relies on the story's subplots, and sadly falls short due to its gradual progression in those characters, as well as its previous episodes' drop, making this episode slower than most. Thankfully, there are many points in the episode that make up for its moderate progression. Let's say the concluding performance of Just You at the Roadhouse made us remember just how cheesy James really is. What expresses Twin Peaks' weird atmosphere more than a throwback like this? I don't care if James has a new crush, I only care that James still hasn't learned any new way to pick up a girl.
Nice day for a picnic.
Yeah.
Or even a new song. Although the most important segment that carried this episode is the scenes with Mr. C entering the farm and dueling Big Muscles in an arm wrestling contest. The great thing about this scene is how interesting Mr. C has come along. Since Dale's evil side is still mysterious to us, it's refreshing to see how he taunts his opponent as if he were to gain anything besides intimidation. It makes you wonder what exactly Mr. C went through since his entry to Twin Peaks 25 years ago. How did he learn to communicate effectively and not raise any flags that made his identity obvious? I rate Part 13 a 3 out of 5. Although the episode didn't hit any hard confirmations of the big picture, but it was pleasant to see more time in Twin Peaks. Something I think everyone was looking forward to in this return. Despite being one of the few episodes that didn't stand out, the episode gave us more curiosity on what's to come. With 13 hours passed so far, Part 14 has got to be one of the most crucial episodes so far in the season. It is in this episode that we see a large portion of the major characters understanding their part in this imperative goal. Cole recalls a dream he had where he met up with Monica Bellucci and her friends, in which she encourages him to visit a past forgotten memory with Philip Jeffries. Back in 1989, Philip suddenly appears at the FBI offices in Philadelphia and asks if Cole actually knows who Agent Cooper is. This is the same scene taken from the feature film Fire Walk With Me, although not in its entirety. There is a lot to consider here. Why has Cole and even Albert forgotten a crucial memory such as this? Is Cole only recollecting a small portion of the memory? And who does Monica Bellucci represent? If you were to look back at the original scene from the 1992 movie, it looks as if Philip's arrival is a part of Dale's dream. It's unclear exactly if Cole and Albert actually experienced it as well. Still, it was forgotten and there was much more Philip was saying in that film. Although to the audience, most of his explanation was distorted by an overlay of the room above the convenience store. One clear phrase from Jeffries in that scene was, "We live inside a dream."
We live inside a dream.
Monica Bellucci and her friends could somehow be connected to the fireman and the Black Lodge, or an emissary to relay the truth about Dale Cooper. It is also at this time when Diane reveals that Janie E is her half-sister. Knowing this Diane was manufactured, this reveal must have been planned by Mr. C to allow contact between Cole and Cooper. This must have been another attempt from Mr. C to stop Dale from progressing any further. Considering that Diane has become a part of Cole's investigation, she can guide the others astray while she can somehow seize Dale. Back at Twin Peaks, Andy appears in front of the fireman and is presented with enough information to allow him to direct everyone in the right path. This path is yet another way to ensure Mr. C's capture, but was it in the best interests for Dale? In my final analysis video, I explained my thoughts on the fireman and Dale's relationship. I believe they made a deal to allow Dale to re-enter the real world to capture Dale's doppelganger and save Laura Palmer, but Dale's fate is decided by the fireman. This whole season, Mike has been overseeing Dale in Dougie's state, which could possibly be to truly help Dale, but the fireman's intentions are so unclear that he could be more evil than we make him out to be. The last this episode has to give us is Sarah Palmer's abnormal behavior. Sarah has been one of the many mysteries in this season that we have seen very little of. It's difficult to pinpoint where she has been and how she has turned into this monstrous being. However, in this state, she resembles her own daughter from the Red Room. Both Sarah and Laura remove their face to expose a void past their mask, but under their disguise they have a distinct appearance. Laura's void is radiant and pleasant, while Sarah's is ominous and unnerving. The difference is like heaven and hell, Laura being an angel and Sarah a demon. It's as if Laura was Sarah's happiness, and once Laura departed, Sarah lost her sanity and gave into a dark presence. I rate part 14 a 4.5 out of 5. This episode somehow feels like a dream of some sorts, and I know that sounds strange, but so many of these scenes revolve around reminiscing and moments that seem to be perceived illogically. Imagine Sarah's outburst and how it leads to no consequences for her in the end, or at least that we can see. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that she would be under investigation by the sheriff's department because of this specific event. This is one of those scenes that could possibly be a part of Sarah's imagination, which makes this episode much more fascinating. We are unsure what exactly is happening in reality and if what we are seeing is actually falsehood. Unfortunately, I think what didn't get me to rate this a full score was my decline in captivation due to the past 2 episodes. Like I have said before, part 12 made a decline, thus impacting the following episodes. So I'm reviewing the episode based on my initial reaction, which was a little less engaged at the time. Granting all that, I think Lynch placed this episode exactly where it needed to be, along with every other episode this season. Part 15 is an episode that remains on a steady pace, but establishes a base for the concluding episodes. Ed finally proposes to Norma, which concludes their subplot. As a fan favorite, Ed's storyline feels cut short. Ed's plot presented a short love story where he harbors feeling for a past lover, Norma, but wins her over in the end. The story didn't stray from this path in the given time with Ed. We are only given 2 episodes out of the 18 with Ed, which was also presented late in the season. The idea of this season is to feature the Twin Peaks universe in a different light with a new motif, but a subplot such as Ed and Norma's could have further boosted the other subplots. Before I complain too much about this, I do want to note that Everett McGill, the actor playing Big Ed, is one of the few in the cast that retired and only returned to reprise his role specifically for Twin Peaks. McGill retired back in 1999, and to return after a long break shows a great deal of devotion and enthusiasm for the series. Although it's unfortunate to see Ed in a small scale, I think we are lucky for him to come back after so many years. Besides the interesting interaction between Mr. C and the robot version of Philip Jeffries, there was a couple of scenes that stood out. The James and Freddy duo made an excellent fight scene at the Roadhouse, and when I mean fight scene, I mean superhuman green hand Freddy taking out the trash, while James gets pushed around.
I like her.
The last prominent scene was the one where Margaret, the log lady, spoke her final words to Hawk, making a stunning and heartbreaking moment. The actress Kathleen Coulson passed before the premiere of this season, and seeing her last performance was truly fascinating. I rate part 15 a 3 out of 5. The build-up of the season up to this point has made me wonder how this season will come to a close. Even seeing some of the concluding minor plots in this episode, you can tell that a majority of the story will be left in a cliffhanger, which is expected. Even though Ed's plotline wrapped up so quickly, it is one of the few that actually concludes in a pleasing way. Since season 3 is represented as an 18-hour-long movie, we gotta imagine this season with an enormous 3-act structure. And from this episode on, we are on the last highest peak, which is the resolution. Part 16 has got to be one of the greatest episodes of the season, since it has the greatest moment we have been waiting for since the start, Dale's return. The whole season has been carefully assembling Dale's recovery from the help of Mike and the Red Room. Even in his unresponsible state, Dale has gained substantial allies that at this point would help carry him back to Twin Peaks to finish his job. What's even better is that the whole episode is arranged flawlessly that reminds the audience why we love the show and how it proves itself once again. With a ridiculous shootout in front of the Joneses' house, Mr. C receiving Father of the Year award by electrocuting his son, Diane revealing herself as a tulpa after explaining her night with Mr. C, and a tender moment with Dale's departure from his newfound family, Janie E and Sonny Jim. There isn't a moment where the tension breaks and we are left wanting more. It's a non-stop road that makes this entire season worthwhile. For God's sake, we finally get to relive Audrey's dance, before it to be suddenly taken away and to be one of the most puzzling yet intriguing moments of the season. I rate Part 16 a 5 out of 5. This episode starts the conclusion in a positive light, and it rolls through the rest of the season like this. I would love to go into further detail on more of the events that take place in this episode, but an episode such as this could be discussed for a great amount of time. Since parts 17 and 18 were released at the same time, I'm counting these 2 hours as a two-parter. Thus, I will review them as a whole. At this point, the plot puts the spotlight on Dale's imperative goal to stop Mr. C and his return to the rural town of Twin Peaks. Besides Part 8, we haven't yet had an episode where the plot is centralized to an individual scenario, and Part 17 plays in this unordinary fashion. Part 18 is even more clear-cut, since the majority of that episode keeps the audience unaware of the surroundings and through the point of view of Dale. In the last episode, Dale is directed in an entirely new direction, one that seems to be projected yet unexpected by the viewer and even Cooper. As I have explained earlier, I've come up with the speculation that Dale and the fireman agreed on a deal that will allow Dale to return and save Laura, but in return he would have to compensate for his actions. This is what I believe Part 18 is, and if you'd like to see more of my thoughts on the finale, find my analysis for it in the card above and a description below. I discussed these last 2 episodes in greater detail in that video. Going back to Dale's arrival in Twin Peaks and his success in imprisoning Mr. C, he reverses Diane's mask from Naito, in which Dale's translucent face announces, "We live inside a dream," in the deep tone of Mr. C.
We live inside a dream.
This is the exact phrase Philip Jeffries said to Gordon Cole in the lone scene in Fire Walk With Me, the same scene we discussed back in Part 14. Another segment that had 2 scenes coinciding against each other. Since Jeffries' disappearance back in 1987, he returned to Cole in 1989 with an unusual nature. He was difficult to comprehend for Gordon, Albert, and Dale, since he was accusing Cooper to be a false identity, even though Dale didn't recognize him. Wherever Jeffries was, he was affected by Judy and his investigation in 1986 at Buenos Aires. Could the good Dale in this scene be deceiving everyone and putting up a front, or could he have altered from his 25-year confinement and be much like Jeffries after his encounter with Judy? Even though it should be expected that this is a case we must analyze on our own, these last 2 episodes makes a dark and bizarre presentation into an enigma. We can't be too certain of what to make of Dale's journey coming to a close, and where it will lead him. I rate parts 17 and 18 a 5 out of 5 as a whole. The finale is one of the most peculiar and pleasing in a robust kind of way. When it comes to David Lynch, we have come to recognize and appreciate his conspicuous design. We're given a reason to predict our own outcome, and it's because of this season's conclusion that has gotten everyone to examine it more closely. If you loved it or hated it, we speculated no matter what. Twin Peaks' return rebuilt the universe of Twin Peaks, although it has formed into something unusual yet satisfying. The 3rd season makes a darker and even more intricate rendition of Dale's psychological struggle to fix what he has come to do in the original 2 seasons. The second half of the season slowly pushes the viewer through the last leap of Dale's attempt. Although these 10 episodes have more lower scores than my first half of the review, I wouldn't say the show was a disappointment after those initial episodes. I believe a majority of what we expected from the season presented itself here. I do think the curiosity of the show's progression in Part 12 subsided the momentum, which carried on for the episodes that followed, although the show reached one of the season's highest peak soon after. To conclude the season's review, I rate Twin Peaks Season 3 a solid 5 out of 5. Although there were a few concerns with the progress, I believe this season plays an important part not only to Dale Cooper's storyline, but to the evolution to the Twin Peaks universe. What is your favorite episode of the season, and what do you take from it? Thank you everyone for watching this analysis. If you want to join our community and see more analysis content on Twin Peaks, click the subscribe button to join the community. Anyway, what do you want to see me analyze next? Thank you once again, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.